So Alex, one of the things that's always intrigued me about sales is, despite the fact that, there's plenty of science out there that suggests that human beings are emotional decision makers, when it comes to business, we often assume that it's an entirely rational process. So I'm just curious, given that a lot of buyers are trained to, sift out the emotion, what's your view on the balance when it comes to business sales engagement at a commercial level about the balance between rational versus emotional?
Yeah, it's a really good question because increasingly buyers are trained to screen out the emotion because they're discouraged to build a bond with the suppliers because they feel that they may be potentially taken advantage of, for example. And unless you're an algorithm, the truth is that you do have emotion. No matter how you prefer to process information, you do take decisions based on how you feel and what you think. Now, you may have a bias towards the logical and what you think, but still emotion plays a role. And from a supplier perspective, you've got to really believe that it's not just about the data. It's not just about the numbers. And you've got to take time to understand how somebody's feeling about something or getting a sense of how somebody's feeling about something, even if the numbers stack up, even if that is absolutely clear. Because it's true that if you haven't really engaged the emotion, it's often then that the sale fails afterwards. And that's the challenge that we've got to face.
And how often would you say in your experience is, something seemingly rational like, price actually cover for maybe something emotional within the customer?
Yeah, and it often is. Often the rational will be the excuse will be rational, whereas actually underneath there is something that they don't like. It may be an allegiance to another supplier, for example, which can get in the way of decision making, or and maybe rightly so. They will feel more predisposed to another supplier because they feel more comfortable, more trustworthy with it. And we mustn't underestimate that. For example, when you are trying to pre-engage your customer, very often they'll insist on a pre-read, for example. Remember, they will interpret that pre-read in the way that they interpret that pre-read, which is not the way that you would want it to be interpreted, probably. And the way that they read that and the way that they engage with it will be different if you're the person that takes them through that. And, also think when your ideas are represented onwards in a business, and this is a really interesting thing from a stakeholder management perspective, you may, you and your buyer may agree that, the idea is a great idea, but if they then need it signed off by somebody else, their representation of that is one step removed from the emotion that you bring to that argument. And it's really important that you think through that next step process because it's not over until the decision is made. And oftentimes that decision isn't made at that midpoint where you and your customer spend time engaging around the problem. So you've got to remember beyond the immediate yes or no from that meeting.
Okay, so it's not just there for the immediate person that you're meeting in that organization. There's something there about thinking how that decision-making process goes on, and also realizing that if it goes on towards that organization with different stakeholders, that emotion that your original contact is feeling may get lost along the way.
Yeah, and also knowing that those people themselves will take decisions based on emotion and rationale. So it is a complex thing to get a hold of, but your connection with those individuals, your buyer being the principal one in the first place to be going to, is critical to your success, both emotional and rational.